Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the HerbRally podcast. My name is Christa Sinadinos, and I'm the episode's guest host for the Herbalist Hour. Today, we're celebrating the 100th episode of the show, so we're going to turn the tables around on Mason and interview him this time.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
But before we get into the show, I'd like to thank the presenting sponsor of the Herbalist Hour, and that is Oshala Farms. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different medicinal plant species. If you're looking to purchase organic and dried herbs grown in the United States, check out Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com.
Perfect.
They have impeccable herbs. I love the quality of their
They're amazing.
herbs. But let's jump into the interview with Mason.
Sounds great.
Oh, so hello and welcome. My name is Christa Sinadinos, and I'm the founder and director of the Northwest School for Botanical Studies and the author of the Essential Guide to Western Botanical Medicine. I will be your guest host today on the Herbalist Hour and for HerbRally, and I could not be more thrilled to host the 100th episode of the Herbalist Hour podcast with my dear friend, Mason Hutchison. What a joy and delight. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mason.
Thank you, Christa.
Yes, your fans are long overdue to see an
Yeah.
interview with their founder and co-owner of HerbRally. So congratulations on the successful completion of 100 episodes. That's a significant feat.
Thank you so much, Christa, and I really appreciate you wanting it. In fact, I want to say you were the person that said, "Hey, Mason, why don't we interview you at some point?" And I was like, "Well, we've got a 100th episode coming up. That'd be a perfect time to do it." And 100 episodes is actually very significant for me because I said at the beginning of the show, which took me years to work my way into like building up the the gumption to do it. I said 100 episodes is when I would hope that I was a quasi decent interviewer. So hopefully at this point I've gained some skills and I hope to continue to improve the herbalist hour along with Amanda's help. But yeah, so 100 is a big deal, and I'm stoked that we're finally crossed that threshold.
Congratulations. It really is a significant feat, and what a gift to the herbal community. And you are doing a fantastic job interviewing. I think you've reached that point of success, with your interview. So are you feeling more comfortable and calm in the process of interviewing people, or?
Absolutely. I remember the first episode was with Jiling Lin. In fact, I'm just now kind of realizing this today. That was almost a year ago to the day. I want to say it was like January 8th, maybe, when I interviewed Jiling Lin. And for the listener, this is going to be released in early February. We're recording this on January 12th, but it's been about a year since our first interview, and I was way too nervous for that. That was also done in person, but yeah, I would say I've developed a lot more comfort with the interviews and trying to pick up. Now, when I listen to podcasts, I actually listen to the podcast not necessarily for the information. I listen to it based on the host, trying to pick up their little tidbits on how they roll. But yeah, actually, I was having a conversation today with Amanda, and she was pointing out certain areas where I could potentially improve. And instead of old Mason, who might have been a little more defensive or this or that, I'm like really just trying to soak up the critiques and constructive criticism. So, dear listener, if you have any tips or tricks for me on becoming a better interviewer or host, please let me know. But yeah, every interview I think I might get a little bit better. But yeah.
Yeah, I love your interviews, and I always find them really entertaining, and I appreciate, hearing other herbalist stories and the fact that you are there to, to share those or help spread those stories. There are so many incredible herbalists, and you've chosen this path of, honoring people. And so that's part of why, like when we were doing my interview, I'm like, I felt really uncomfortable because I'm used to being the listener.
Totally.
But I had no problem chatting once you asked the questions, and I felt like,
Sure.
ooh, we definitely have to interview you. So, yeah,
Appreciate
fun
that.
to turn the tables, and
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be here. How were your holidays? Did you, Amelia and Amanda, have nice mellow holidays?
Yeah, so currently Amelia is on this every 3 months she comes and visits us, and then she's here for 3 months. So we were fortunate to have her during the holidays, which was awesome. Uh, Unfortunately, the Wisconsin snow waited until after, Christmas and solstice to start sowing, and we're in the middle of a winter storm right now. But yeah, the holidays were fantastic. We went all over Wisconsin visiting Amanda's family, and had a great time. I'm doing my best. I'm like, Krista, do I ask you now how were your holidays, or are we going to keep it on?
Nope, nope. This is all about you, honey. It's all about you.
All
You don't have to
right.
feel good about like not. I felt the same way when you were interviewing me, but no,
Totally.
I'm asking you. And then this your second winter in Appleton, Wisconsin, or
Actually, you know what? It's my first, because our original plan was we bought an RV when we moved from Oregon to Wisconsin with the intent on spending half the year on the road. And
Mhm.
last year was the first year that we did that. And so we last winter, right after Christmas, we took an extremely long route from Wisconsin back to Oregon, and then we spent the winter there. So this is our first time having like a legit full-on Wisconsin winter.
And you're getting snowed in right now. How many
Absolutely.
inches of snow are there?
I actually don't have that number, but if I were to guess, I'd probably say 8 inches right now.
Oh,
I
boy.
shoveled the driveway this morning, and it's already probably back to around 3 inches or so. So
Wow. Yeah, a whole new
yeah.
winter sport, shoveling driveways.
Yeah, and I skipped the gym today, so I was like, oh, this is my workout for the day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So, have you taken up any other winter sports yet? Like ice skating or, snowshoeing, cross country?
No, but we did get one of those inner tubes. We're gonna go inner tubing. Actually, me and Amelia might do that tonight, but we have plans on doing that this weekend. We are Amanda and I are interested in doing some like cross country skiing type of thing, or
Great.
I actually do want to get into the whole ice fishing thing, but first I need an in. I need to know somebody to do that. So, but yeah, that's in the pipeline.
I was curious about that. I'm like, I wonder if you started, down the ice fishing path or not. Have you built any snow people?
Yeah, Amelia has, but so we're right next to like three different parks, and Amelia and I we go on nightly walks.
Okay.
And it's gonna be difficult tonight, but we might do a little short stint. But yeah, our plan is to go to different parks and build snowmen at each one. So
Awesome. That'll
because we have this tiny little yard, but yeah, we want to share the wealth with the others.
great. Where do you put the
Yeah.
carrot?
Right into the genital region. I mean the nose.
With the two coals.
Exactly.
Okay.
For eyeballs.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
I grew up in Michigan, and when I
Yep.
think of the snow, it conjures like all the memories of that like cool, crisp, invigorating quality of winter. And I was wondering if you've done a polar bear plunge yet, like where you go in the water, the freezing cold water, like jump through the ice into the water.
I did when I was a child in Oregon,
Yeah.
at like summer camp, but that
Okay.
sounds like next level. That sounds borderline dangerous, Krista. Should I be doing
I
that?
I wouldn't recommend it, but I did
Yeah.
have some kind of crazy friends growing up, and they would
Yeah.
do it every year. And I just would cheer them on. I'm like, that's a little too much for me, but I've run around barefoot in the snow a little bit for a few seconds.
I would
Um,
do it with other people around, just for safety reasons, but I do end every shower with
oh
at
yeah,
least 10 seconds of cold water.
smart.
So I try to like, up my tolerance that way, but a polar plunge in Wisconsin winter sounds hardcore.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the best idea. I definitely wouldn't do it with if you have high blood pressure, heart disease, or anything
Right.
like that. Just as a disclaimer for the show.
Thank you.
But you could always do naked snow angels.
There you go.
That way they can pick you up if there's any problem.
I'm down.
Anyways, all right. Just one other Wisconsin-ish question or Midwestern question.
Sure.
Did you spend this summer there? Or
Yeah. Yep.
okay,
Yeah, we came back in May.
okay.
So May 1st we were back.
And can you canoe around there? Is it that kind of a setup where you can canoe or boat or
Yeah, we have a raft. We haven't done that yet, but Amanda's really big into, canoeing and all that. So I'm sure we'll get into that this coming summer when we're now actually legit settled in. But yeah,
yeah.
there's uh coming from Oregon, Wisconsin is I think people that live around here might be not so appreciative of it because they're just so used to it. They take certain things for granted, but Wisconsin is an incredibly beautiful state. And I feel like just incredibly blessed to be here. So yeah, I'm an Oregon boy, but I love being here in Wisconsin.
Great. Yeah, it's a beautiful state. I love the
It is.
Midwest and just the forest. Do you have, is it pretty flat in Wisconsin or do you have rolling hills or?
I would say flat, definitely comparative to Oregon.
Yeah.
But we visited the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in October. My
Mhm.
goodness, like it very much reminded me of Oregon's landscape for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but not in wintertime. It's a lot colder up there.
Right, right, totally.
And
Which
they
we will
have,
be.
oh, go ahead.
We'll be going to Iron Mountain, Michigan in about a month to watch they're like the Olympic ski jumps. And so I'm excited for that. So we will be there in the dead of winter next month. I'm excited to check that
Ooh,
out. Yeah,
bundle up.
that's right.
Get your mitten warmers. They have those like electric mitten heaters or like anyways, my carpenter friends used to use those to keep themselves warm when they were working outside in cold
Oh
weather
yeah,
and they're helpful to have anyways. Are
totally.
there a bunch of lakes there as well? Like and
Yeah, I've heard, what is it? Minnesota's the land of 10,000 lakes. I've heard there's more lakes in Wisconsin. I don't know how true that is, but
I know
yeah,
I was
they're
trying
all over.
I was trying to figure that out because I was like, well, can you have you done like pontooning yet? Like you get on the pontoon
No,
boats and it's pretty
but
fun. You
it's a
go out.
thing, and we're in Appleton, Wisconsin, and we're right on the Fox River, and yes, it's beautiful. Lots of rivers, lots of lakes. Yeah,
Perfect.
I'm a
Yeah.
water type of person too. I love the water, so it's great.
Mm, great. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're there and you've got opportunities to go back to Eugene and anyways, I was just
totally.
curious about where you're living and glad
Yeah,
you've settled in there and getting comfortable and we'll get a little bit more now into the some of your history and take a few steps back. So
sure.
yeah, I was curious, were you raised with family members or that utilized herbs or were healers or kind of what got you along this path? Like, how were you inspired to study herbalism? And yeah, what brought you here as a herbalist?
Totally. Great question. I did not have anybody in my family that was into herbs. I would say I grew up on the standard American diet. That's not to like throw any shade at my family or anything like that. That's just kind of how it was. And I would say my journey was as a young child, I was very shy. Um, I would say as I moved through teenage years, incredibly depressed. Some
Mhm.
people may not necessarily realize that or think that about me, but like yeah, I was incredibly like just very, very I don't know, morose a lot. And I get to my later teens and uh still just trying to figure out like why do I feel this way? This is just very uncomfortable. And I remember being at this crossroads. I was like, I'm either going to be this 18, 19-year-old person who just sits in their apartment, and smokes weed all day and just plays video games all day. And
Mhm.
um, or I'm going to go the complete opposite route and be incredibly proactive. And I would say I took the incredibly proactive route. Not to say that others who are struggling with it have it. Like I don't want to speak for other people's experience. This is just my
Yeah.
experience, and
Yeah.
my experience was I felt like I was at a crossroads, and I felt like I had a choice, and I felt like it was clear one day. And so what I did was I started massively consuming uh, self-help type of stuff, like lots
Mhm.
of spiritual books, self-help books, um, just to gain the inspiration to know that there's other, ways of thinking out there.
Yeah.
But another route that I took was I started getting into nutrition because go figure, I learned that what you put in your body could have an effect on your mind. And that just like blew me away. And I remember that I want to say it was one of Deepak Chopra's books back in the day. I would listen to some of his like audiobooks on tape or whatever. And I want to say one of them said something about like every 7 years you build a new body with completely new cells or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was just like so encouraging for me. I was like, oh shit, I could totally just build this new body and new mind. So I started becoming hyper obsessive about nutrition. Um, and also with a friend, I was also really we started really getting to like working out and weights and stuff. I've always really been into sports,
Uh-huh.
so it was like this sports nutrition path. And then one day we discovered traditional Chinese medicine. I want to say it was Ron Teagarden's book called Traditional Chinese Medicine. We just got really into it, and yeah, we started taking Ho Shou Wu, goji berries, Romania, like astragalus, like all these different herbs, learning about them and stuff. And that was really the gateway, like nutrition
Mhm.
via mental health,
Yeah.
and that was kind of how it all flourished for me.
That's great. I mean, it does take all of those things, exercise, diet, nutrition, herbs, being active and engaged and that book you mentioned, Ron Teagarden's book, that was definitely one of my gateway books as well. Just
Really?
it was the tonic herbs. That's how
Yeah, I think that might have been it actually.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you were starting with more of the Chinese herbs instead of like a lot of the tonic herbs rather than some of the Western herbs.
Very much so. Yeah. I was really into traditional Chinese medicine, also kind of Ayurveda.
Yeah.
And so I'd heard about KP Khalsa. I didn't even know at the time that he was a Eugenian, which is where I'm from. So that was awesome to later on. I want to say, jumping ahead a little bit,
Yeah.
I decided I wanted to study it. And so I heard about this class that KP Khalsa was teaching at Lane Community College. And it
Yeah.
was like a semester long. And it was all about, I want to say it was all three. It was, well, not all three, but three of the things that he's an expert in: Ayurveda, TCM, and Western energetic herbalism. And yeah, I want to say twice a week for 3 hours a night, and just kind of
Wow.
totally fell in love with herbalism at that point.
That is great. Yeah, KP has a depth and breadth of knowledge and, kind of traverses many planes or many aspects between the Ayurvedic medicine, TCM, and Western herbs. So what a gift that
Absolutely.
that he was one of your first teachers and that kind
Very
of,
lucky.
so, and I'd love to know, like, who else did you study with or who are some of your mentors?
Sure.
I'm curious about.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was a period of time where I was working at the hospital. I thought that I was going to be a dietitian as my career.
Mhm.
And
Hmm.
so I was working at the hospital as a dietitian aide,
Uh-huh.
and I was just like fully immersing myself in this world, just kind of getting into herbalism. And I took KP Khalsa's class. Also, I want to say Keith Hess. I went on a few herb walks with him at Mount Pisgah in Eugene.
Okay.
And then Mountain Rose Herbs moved from who I was buying Mountain Rose herbs
Yeah.
from various local natural food stores, and they moved from Pleasant Hill to Eugene.
Okay.
And I had been at the hospital for 7 years at this point,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, I needed a change in my life. It was another one of those like pivotal moments for me where I felt like I had to make a drastic change and follow an actual direction. That was another thing I want to say that helped me get out of a lot of my mental funk, was actually setting a goal as
Yeah.
opposed to just spending all day like meditating and fasting and all this other spiritual stuff, which I think is incredibly useful. Uh, but I finally had like this direction and like this goal, and then that like gave me this insane boost of energy. So when Mountain Rose Herbs moved from Pleasant Hill to Eugene, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a job there. Like it was my mission to get a job there. It was my mission to like succeed there and do a certain type of work there. And just kind of, you asked about my mentors, just jumping ahead, like I did end up getting a job at Mountain Rose Herbs, and I remember uh in the break room there
Mhm.
was a pamphlet for the Columbine School of Botanical Studies,
Okay.
and that's Howie Brownstein's school. Stephen Yeager was there, an instructor at the time, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It was just I was like, this is for me. Even though at the time, as I was talking about, I was really into traditional Chinese medicine, so everything to me was like sexy adaptogens and stuff like that at the time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and everything was cut and sifted dried herbs, which again like has its place in herbalism, but I didn't actually know the plants.
Mm-hmm.
So it intrigued me, but it also scared me to be getting into columbines, because I knew we'd be going out in the woods botanizing, and I would never say like science is like my forte.
Mhm.
So I was stretching myself for sure, but I knew that herbalism was my path.
Mhm.
So I decided to take an interview at the Columbine School of Botanical Studies. And I say interview because, Krista, I don't know if you do this, but the interview at Columbine's, and I'm pretty sure it stands to this day, the interviews are like 3 hours long.
I'm sorry. That's a long interview. Leave it to Howie. Are you being interviewed? Were you being interviewed by both Howie and Stephen?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that
it
must
was
have
at a,
been.
a coffee shop that's no longer there in Eugene, but I remember the interview to this day. And I remember asking them, I was like, do you guys talk about adaptogens? And I want to say they kind of like brushed it off or like kind of downplayed it. And I was like, that's okay. And I still decided to take it. And I'm just so happy I did because uh Krista, do you know the term wall of green?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
So right. So before I was living in a wall of green, we grew up going like on hikes at, Spencer Butte and stuff in Eugene and around, Eugene and all that. But like what was once a wall of green after taking Columbines, like it ended up becoming, I could recognize so many different plant species to this day. I
Yeah.
still recite various genus species in my head only because, I took Columbines and yeah, Howie Brownstein, Stephen Yeager, just two incredible mentors to me, and they've taught me so much uh, about herbalism,
Yeah.
ecology,
Yeah.
life. Yeah, I'm just so I could not recommend the Columbine School of Botanical Studies enough, and that's botanicalstudies.net.
Awesome. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that. And
of
shout
course.
out to Howie and Steven. And yeah, Howie's been at it for a long time. I think he's got one of the oldest running schools on the West Coast, doesn't he?
So I'm glad you brought that up because I'm actually going to be interviewing them on the Herbalist Hour at the end of this month. I'm going
Cool.
to be interviewing for them. Actually, Howie, Steven, Leah, and Alex. They're all associated with a school. Steven actually left, but that's another story. He'll
Uh-huh.
still be there. But that's all to say. This is going to be Howie's 40th year teaching.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Kudos to him. Yeah.
yeah.
I remember when I moved here, well, to Northern California after studying with Michael Moore
Yeah.
in the 90s. It was like 30 years ago. Um, and anyways, I was looking up schools, and at the time, Howie's school was called the Columbine School of Wizardry.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was like, huh, I don't know if I want to move yet. And it's he's such a character. And anyways, I was like, huh. So I did want to ask, like, did you learn how to be a wizard?
That's such a good question, and we've mentioned Steven a couple times. So Steven Yeager,
Yeah.
he's also like the quality control director at Mountain Rose Herbs,
Oh
and he's a
yeah.
close friend of mine. And he joined Howie. I'm probably going to get some of the dates wrong, but he joined Howie probably 15 years after Columbine started. And I want to say because I interviewed Steven for the Herbalist Hour as well, which is an awesome episode. You should definitely watch that.
I have
Steven's
listened. Yeah.
Steven's a hoot. And he is the one that suggested they remove wizardry from the name
Okay.
because I'll let Steven tell the story, but essentially they wanted to appear a little more like respectable. So now they're the Columbine School of BS.
Exactly. Yeah, I have the Northwest School of BS, so I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, we
Right,
talk shit about
BS.
plants all day. Yep, botanical studies. Give me your
But
money, darling.
I do want to say, and maybe we'll talk about this later. I'm not sure, but you asked if I learned to be a wizard, which I'm just gonna say no. But that said, Howie and Steven, well, we'll just say Howie because Steven's not at the school anymore. I want to say like the Columbine School of Botanical Studies, they're not outright trying to teach you like spirituality or plant spirit medicine or anything like that. But I will say this, being in that they're very like science forward, botany, ecology, herbalism, which is science too. Um, when you can't help but have spiritual experiences when you're out in the old growth forest for literal hours at a time, looking at tiny flowers through loops. So although I wouldn't say they outright intended to like create wizards or witches or anything like that, at the same token, you are having incredible deep connection with nature and spiritual experiences.
Yeah, it's profound it's
Yeah,
and transformative, and yeah, it's an amazing
absolutely.
experience being in nature and really just soaking in the ecology and how interconnected the plants are. I mean, it is that in and of itself is a spiritual experience. And I say that as a, non-practicing person,
Right.
yeah, that it is magical. It's amazing. So yes, the
Absolutely.
wizardry was infused into you.
That's right. To one degree or another.
Yeah, and it's not like you really want to call yourself a wizard or
Fuck no.
a curandera, like you're like,
No,
I'm a shaman,
no.
no. People who are those things, they don't usually call themselves those things. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
I'm very much just a podcast host. I guess.
Okay, I'll give you some more credit throughout, okay? Because we know
All
you're
right.
more than just a podcast host.
Thank you.
So what year did you study with Stephen and Howie, or what years?
Yeah, so 2011,
Okay.
I took my first year, and then I want to say there was like some half year I did, but then 2013, I took the second year apprenticeship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And then you were working at Mountain Rose during that time and for like a couple years prior to that, or a year prior?
Yeah, so my whole life changed. 10 is when I quit my job at the hospital.
Okay.
And yeah, so I quit my job at the hospital. And I remember after a couple months, there was an event called Rootstock, which also changed my life. So in a matter of months, or like 12 months, I changed my job. I got my dream job essentially. I started herb school and I became a father. Oh yeah, and then just to add, a couple months later, I met Rosemary Gladstar, which was also just kind of like another like it was such a cool succession of events.
Yeah.
And it was just yeah, very that's what I like. I don't know, like maybe I just always recommend people follow their heart, and that's why it's just based on personal experience. Because I feel like if something is continuously nagging at you,
Yep.
nagging, I feel like there's a reason for that. And
Yep.
maybe I got lucky in a lot of ways. I wouldn't, count that out, but I would definitely say I'm so much more fulfilled having made tough decisions to leave my cush job with all my
Yep.
best friends with great benefits to go work at some online herb store, like, and start
Yeah.
from bottom. But my soul was just telling me I had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to listen to those callings when they come a knocking, because they don't stop knocking, like they'll keep slipping in different ways. And it's like, ooh, maybe it is time I listen to this, listen to my heart, listen to, like the plants, they kind of call you, and it's just
Totally.
like, come hither, come hither. And they just keep roping you in. You're like, why am I dreaming about them? Oh, I'm driving 50 miles an hour, seeing them on the side of the road. And that was over. And there's a nettle patch. It's like they grab you. And I love that feeling when the plants grab you. And I'm glad you were grabbed by the plants and that you listened. And it's hard not to listen to them. They really make it clear, you know?
Yeah, without a
So
doubt. Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy.
you had a lot happening. So Amelia was born, you started school, you quit the hospital, started Mountain Rose, kind of everything unfolded with learning with KP and Howie, and that's so awesome. And then you worked at Mountain Rose for what? 10 years? How long did you work there?
Yeah, so I say 11 years, but I want to say technically it was 10 years, 11 months, but we'll just round up. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was there for 11 years, and I was their events and outreach coordinator, later on like a quasi different title, but essentially that's what I was for a decade at Mountain Rose Herbs.
What better job could you land?
Seriously.
That is so fun. I mean, like getting to go to events,
Yeah.
meeting people. That is incredible.
Especially coming from someone who was like literally, I know again, like I'm exaggerating, but like I was such a shy kid. I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't talk to anybody, and if I did, it was like very bashful. And but then I somehow later, just my job was to go around the country to herb conferences, natural food shows, and literally talk to people and represent, in my opinion, one of the coolest organic herbal brands out there. So yeah, it was definitely a really amazing experience for me, and it changed my life in so many different ways.
I can only imagine. I mean, yeah, you get the cream of the crop job there. I mean,
Totally.
it's, that's fun. Get paid to go to conferences. Like most of us herbalists, we can't afford to go to the conferences we teach at.
I
You're
know.
like, yeah, I get flown there. I'm gonna like, they probably, rented you a hotel room. You got all the other herbalists.
Yes.
I bet all the herbalists who are camping are like, hey, we're going to Mason's room tonight. He's got the Flush Mountain Rose kick down.
To be fair, when I went to herb conferences, I slept in the same cabins and tents and all that
Okay.
stuff.
I'm just messing.
I
Sorry.
know.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
No, you weren't like brought there in a limo or anything like
No,
that.
no. Although I do have a really great story. I do remember one time we went to the Florida Herbal Conference, and or it was just me. I went to the Florida Herbal Conference, and all the flights got delayed.
Yeah.
And I arrived, I want to say it was like 2 a.m. at the Tampa airport, and all they had left for rental cars was even though I want to say I reserved one, all they had left was this like ridiculous, probably 2019 Dodge Charger or something like that. It was like it's like a brand new muscle car. And then one night I had to sleep in the trunk, but that's a different story.
Sorry. Why did you have to sleep in the trunk?
Um, it was so I was leaving to Vegas for another event. It was an event for event planners in Las Vegas, and I was trying to leave a night early because I was like, this is just my flight. It was like a flight situation, a comfort situation. I was like, I should just be in Orlando or Tampa or whichever airport I was flying out of. So I was like, I'll leave a night early and get a hotel.
Uh-huh.
And lo and behold, I get to, I want to say it was Orlando. Maybe it was Tampa. It doesn't really matter for the story. I get to whatever city I'm going to get a hotel. And no joke, every single hotel is booked. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, is this actually possible? I think there was some event happening because Orlando's a huge city. And
Yeah.
then all the Airbnbs were taken up. We even had travel agents to try to help me out. And so my option was to either sleep in the car or drive an hour and a half to 2 hours back to the event. And
Yeah.
I was just like, fuck it. And I slept in the trunk of a Walmart parking lot. And then yeah.
That sounds awful.
It was really bad, but you do what you gotta do sometimes.
Yeah, you're toughing it out. That's like,
Yeah.
it's definitely toughing it out.
I was at like an angle with like my feet in the front and my head in the back. It was an awkward position.
I bet you didn't sleep much.
I didn't sleep very well. My one saving grace is it was raining that night, and I'm a big fan of white noise. So it
Yeah.
was just like pitter patter against the trunk, and that lulled me to sleep. And then, and then I took a shower, I want to say at like an LA Fitness the next day, and I flew to Las Vegas.
Get me out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, that's a good story. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it's all part of my
not
journey.
it's not all herbs and glory.
No,
It's a tough road to be an herbalist
that's
sometimes.
right. Yeah.
Um, so just circling back a little bit when you were talking about, kind of depression and
Yep.
leading you to food and herbs, and then you mentioned that you set a goal, and what was that goal?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
didn't you say that you set
I
a goal
did.
and it helped
Yeah,
you? And
that's
I just wanted to circle back to
very,
that.
very much so. Thanks for highlighting that. Yeah, so basically, so yeah, I would say like we could all look back at our lives and there's like these distinct segments And I was very thankful to have that like hyper spiritual segment of my life where I made the decision to improve myself. And then I had years of that. Also, it was very imbalanced by like partying too. So there was like that duality as well. So there was like partying and then hyper spiritualism at some points where I became, I want to say I went standard American diet,
Yeah.
organic, vegetarian, vegan, raw vegan. Then I experimented with fruitarianism, and then I started really admiring folks that even fasted a lot. And I got my weight incredibly way too low, and I was very hyper obsessed with that. But at the same token, I'm very glad that I went through that phase. I think it was very necessary to move forward. But at the same token, I realized I didn't have any like purpose. I was It's what do you call it, like mental or spiritual masturbation. And I remember I read this one book. It's called Words to the Wise. Oh shit, Manly P. Hall. I was really obsessed with Manly P. Hall, and he was like a religious studies author. Do you know that author?
No, I thought your title was Words to the Wise, the Manly Pee Hole. And I'm like, I was taking it in. And then I realized that's the author's name.
Yeah,
And I'm
Manly
like,
P.
there's
Hall.
the womanly hole we all are ushering through, and then I'm sure there's the manly pee hole. But I'm excuse me, sorry to manly pee
No,
hole.
that's great. Thank you. If I'm getting it correct, I want to say the author's name was Manly P. Hall, and he wrote a book called Words to the Wise. And on the front cover is a wizard-looking guy with long hair, long gray beard. He's crossing his legs, probably meditating or something like that. And I was like, ooh, this is the next book for me to reach that next level of wisdom or whatever.
Yeah.
And what happened was the exact opposite, which was the best thing that could have happened to me. What was happening in the book was, or the thesis of the book was, stop with all of the spiritual seeking and knowledge, and actually do work in the world.
Nice.
And it like blew my mind. I could not believe it. And it seemed so obvious to me. I was like, oh, okay. And then after Words to the Wise, I was kind of writing that like notion. And then I discovered, or I want to say it was a friend slash coworker told me about this audiobook called The Strangest Secret. And again, like this sounds like self-helpy, and this is like 1950s self-help by Earl Nightingale, and it has lots of hyper Christian undertones. So maybe if you're easily offended by that stuff, don't listen to it. But the idea is you are what you put in your mind. And if you don't have a direction, you're just going to be floundering about, just like going this way or that way in the waves of the ocean of the mind. And I realized I needed a super hyper intense actual North Star.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And just to get to your question, that's kind of like the background to all of that. I decided to set a goal, and this was essentially what my heart again was telling me to do. I said, I want to get a job at Mountain Rose Herbs. I want to pursue herbalism, and I want to be, this is going to sound incredibly, can I say douchey, or what's the,
Just say
I don't
it.
know.
Don't judge
Okay.
yourself.
Yeah. I said I want to be one of the faces of Mountain Rose Herbs.
Awesome.
And I have no idea why I wanted to do that. I just wanted to be, I wanted to be a part of that organization, and I wanted to matter, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's what my soul was telling me to do for whatever reason. And it's just very interesting because 2 years after working at Mountain Rose Herbs, Sean Donnell, one of the owners of Mountain Rose Herbs, looked at me and said, Mason, you're the face of Mountain Rose Herbs. And it was the wildest thing, like this full circle thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I set this, to me, a ludicrous, audacious goal. Because again, like at the time I was reserved, shy, gaining some confidence and at that point, and in my capabilities. but like to set a goal like that, and then this brand is very well respected and widely known, and to actually be able to do it and accomplish that was just incredible to me. So
That is amazing. I
yeah,
thank you for sharing that story. I didn't realize that was the goal. I'm glad I asked and circled back to that. So those are big goals, and it does really help to ground you and direct you
yeah,
to be of service and to have goals. And I think it's really important for people, especially as they're starting their herbal path, to be like, okay, where am I going with this?
yeah.
Because it is easy to get swept away either with like the spiritual side of things, or like you're saying, going from like vegetarian to vegan to like raw foodist to fruitarian, you're like floating away. And then
Yeah.
you need an
Yeah.
anchor. You need an anchor in your book. Those books were anchors for you. And it's like, I'm going to do work in the world and I'm going to be the face of Mountain Rose. And I've always associated you with Mountain Rose. Like, I mean, at least
Totally.
the 2010s, because I would see you at conferences and like, I think, weren't you giving one of the donations for schools?
Yeah, I
Weren't
was the
you doing that for a
herbal
while?
educator liaison. Yeah, I did that
That's
for the
right.
entire time. I was essentially in charge of events and the relationship with the herbal community at large.
Yeah, I remember that's how I met you
Yep,
originally,
that's
the
right.
events coordinator and at a few conferences and stuff. So,
Yep.
and I thought you were really outgoing. So,
Hmm.
clearly you had transformed and you did become the face of Mountain Rose. And I'm glad they, recognized you. And it's
Thank
beautiful,
you.
beautiful to see your journey and also like Mountain Rose, how much they've grown over the years. Because,
Absolutely.
I remember when I was first starting, just briefly, and when I was
Please.
starting my journey in herbalism, and I moved to Arcata after studying with Michael Moore in New Mexico and Adam Sellers in the Bay Area. I moved here, and at the time, Julie was living, and I don't know if she was with Sean or not, but she was living in Garberville.
Mm.
And we had taken a class together, and she's like, "You are so knowledgeable. Will you move here and help us run Mountain Rose Herbs? Will you be our herbalist, like one of our herbalists on staff?"
Wow.
And I had just literally settled in to and gotten a home, and I was like, "Oh, I just got established here, and I just got a job at the herb shop, which was like one of my dream jobs at the time." And now she wants us to move to Garberville, or wants me to move to Garberville. I'm like, I don't want to go there because there's all the pot scene and stuff, and I didn't want to be associated with that as an herbalist. Go figure. Anyways,
Makes
so
sense.
so yeah, then they ended up moving to Oregon, and the business and my old friend, not old friend, but my friend from early times, Rose Madrone, I think sold it to
Oh
Julie.
yeah,
That
that's
sound
right.
right?
Yep, totally.
Okay.
And fun like little Mountain Rose Herbs history. So Mountain Rose Herbs back in 2013, when I first met Rosemary Gladstar, I was the organizer of it. I didn't necessarily create it, but I was the organizer of an event called the Free Herbalism Project, which they
Yeah.
host to this day. And the very first event was very special because it was Rose Madrone and Rosemary Gladstar.
Oh,
And right before the event started, they had the three different generations of the owners all on stage and talking, and there was a really incredible moment. So yeah, I still know Rose Madrone to this day, and um, yeah, that was just a really special time to see all the
oh,
lineage of Mount Rose Herbs on stage at once.
I have the goosebumps just thinking about all of them. Rosemary,
It was
Rose
cool.
Madrone, Sean and Julie both there. So, are all of them there? And yeah, I have the goosebumps. It's like, the
And
lineage.
just
People.
just for the listeners, since you're clearly podcast listeners, if you go back to episode 1 of Herbal Radio, which is Mount Rose Herbs podcast, I want to say that's Rose Madrone's talk. And then episode 2 or 3 is Rosemary Gladstar. So you could actually go back and listen to those.
Great.
Which another fun story, Rosemary in that episode shouts me out on stage because when it was me and a couple coworkers, and we went to the old growth woods with her to like hang out with her and have lunch, just kick it. Again,
Yeah.
like I had a really cool job at the time,
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
she, in true Rosemary Gladstar fashion, she made us all sing,
Oh,
and I did not grow up singing or anything like that. And I remember my coworkers were quasi uncomfortable, but I just fucking let it rip. And I sang as hard as I could for Rosemary in the Woods because I was like, I'm never gonna have this opportunity again.
that's so awesome.
So
That is
yeah,
great. That's a good
yeah,
story. It
yeah,
almost brings tears to my eyes actually, because yeah, she's just like, you gotta sing for the plants. And it's like, well,
totally.
I'm off key. And she's like, they don't care. They
Yeah,
don't
no,
care. I want you to
exactly.
sing to them. And I'm like, all right. I mean, she's like, she'll sing like camp songs. I feel like I'm back in like I don't know, second grade or something. She's like, the wheels on the bus go round and round. I love that she brings that joyfulness, and always sings to the plants. And it's a good reminder to do that stuff, the hippie stuff. And to let the plants know too, like we love them. But
Absolutely.
yeah, what a treat you got and that you got to spend time with Rosemary. She's such a delight and just, a beautiful, beautiful human being. So
That's
she's
right.
special. And she did start so much on oh my God, we know. Tia, traditional medicinals, mountain rose herbs, Rosemary's Garden, and they're all still California School of Herbal Studies. It's like
International Herbal Symposium, United Plant Savers, Brighton Bush Herbal
yeah,
Conference. Yeah, totally.
yeah. I mean, the list goes on. So yeah,
Yeah,
she's a major inspiration. So blessings to her and gratitude to
absolutely.
her for helping usher all of us into the herbal world, or at least all the us white people. Sorry, not just to be exclusive, but like
Right.
people, had their native teachers, and she, helped revive herbalism and the hippie movement along with a few other herbalists, at the time. So,
She was
anyways,
incredibly influential on me early
yeah,
on, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
and she still is. She's such a
big time.
yeah. Anyways, we could gush about her all day.
Yeah, that's right.
But we're here to
I
bring.
promised myself I wouldn't bring up Rosemary this episode, but hey.
Hey, she's worth bringing up.
That's right.
Okay, so you were at Mountain Rose 10, almost 11 years, and then during that time you studied with Howie for 2 years, and then did you also study? You studied one more place, didn't you, with Missy and?
Yeah, so it's the Arctos School of Herbal and Botanical Medicine
Okay,
or Studies. I want to say it's medicine. And that
okay,
was in Portland, Oregon. And I remember I had been a couple of years removed from Columbines,
yep,
still had the itch. And actually, again, like props to Howie Brownstein. This I don't I it's one of those things where people credit quotes to like Churchill or this or that. I want to say this is a Howie quote though, but it could be
mhm.
from somewhere else. Repetition is the key to mastery. And
Yeah,
and they really drill that in you in Columbines. And again, I'm still saying Vancouveria, Hexandra in my head, even though I haven't seen Duckfoot,
yeah,
in a while. But I needed more repetition, so
yeah,
I wanted to go to another like quasi local school. So I decided after a couple of years of being in Columbines, it might have been 2 or 3, 4, maybe even years at that
hmm,
point. I wanted to take another herbalism apprenticeship.
yeah,
So I decided to drive up to Portland every couple weeks to take the Arcto School apprenticeship, and that's with Missy Rose. Shout
hmm,
out Missy Rose
hmm,
and Grady Proctor. And yeah, just again, like two incredible teachers.
yeah.
Grady comes from the Columbines tradition,
Oh,
and
great.
Missy was studied with Michael Moore. So
I
I feel like
thought,
there was a lot of like overlap, but there was also
yeah,
still kind of like this different perspective.
yep,
And I don't want to say Columbines doesn't teach medicine making because they certainly do.
hmm,
They certainly do, but I want to say Arctos might have a little more, say, kitchen component, if you will. And then there's definitely still like field study and botany and ecology and all that. So in some ways, I felt like I was getting repetition. I was learning new plants. The other thing is Columbines doesn't necessarily teach about, say, mushrooms or trees too
yeah,
much. And that's another like strong suit I'd say for Arctos. So that was again like very influential on me. I was getting repetition, I was getting new
yep,
stuff, I was getting to hang out with new homies in Portland who are like my
mhm,
neighbors 2 hours north. So
yep,
yeah, it was just another phenomenal experience. And I just always love recommending folks like you don't have to just take one
yeah,
apprenticeship. Like
yeah.
take online, go to events, go to herb walks, take this apprenticeship, take that apprenticeship. Like, and that's kind of like how I've always viewed it. So
Yeah, no, there's the learning is continuous when we study
absolutely.
herbs, it just never, it's a great thing about the field. It never ends. The learning never ends, and the many facets of herbalism just to keep going on and on. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. Like the evolution of HerbRally. Let's talk about that a little bit because, like, you started that when you were working a little bit at Mountain Rose, or you were working full time at Mountain Rose. Tell us about that evolution and how HerbRally came to be, your inspiration. Yeah, I'd love to hear your story about that.
Yeah, so how HerbRally started
Yeah,
was when I was working at Mountain Rose Herbs. Actually, let's take it a little bit before that.
back it up a little bit
Um,
more.
yeah, a little bit more. So in my elementary school days, um, I had this like desire to make money for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it was this it was weird because I would yeah, I grew up, I would say like middle class, lower middle class or whatever. Like my parents, I'll give them massive credit for this. Like they said anything I ever wanted, I had to essentially earn for
Mhm.
myself, like so I had this like deep work ethic kind of within me. And so do you remember the classified ads
Yeah.
and the newspaper? So back in the day in the classified ads, I would literally pay, and I was probably like in fourth grade, um, money to take out classified ads to say, I will mow your lawn for this or that. And and my friend Chris and I, we would put posters around on, telephone poles, and we would say, we'll work for nachos. And we would have all these like clever slogans. My dad's favorite is I came up with this. It was cheap, but not too cheap for like yard work because we didn't want to get like taken advantage of, right?
Totally. That's awesome.
Yeah. So early on, I had like this entrepreneurial spirit, if you
Yeah.
will, to like
Yeah.
take matters into my own hands. Like, well, I want that CD or tape, or I want that video game,
Yeah.
and it's interesting as my life progressed.
Mhm.
I just when I fill into this like hole or whatever, I just felt like I was this company person, and I would forever just work for someone else, um and nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't want to like put it that way, but like something inside of me, I think always wanted to venture on my own and try some sort of business on my own. But for the longest time, it was just like, I'm just going to be working for a company, and that's going to be that. And later, as I want to say, like my spirit grew, and as I gained more confidence, I eventually started learning like, oh, there's other ways to go about this. And then since I was the event person for Mountain Rose Herbs, I was like seeking for websites that listed herbalism events, and I would find certain websites here and there that did it, but they would only list like major conferences and that have like 2 or 3 events on their website.
Mhm.
And I was looking for a website that listed everything, like in every state, plant walks, lectures, and like tiny little neighborhoods. And I discovered that there wasn't anything like that. And so I decided I want to create that.
Yeah.
And the original intent wasn't actually even a business. It was just like this creative outlet. Because I do always have, I've always resonated as a creative person, but I never really felt like putting myself out there in that way. And so one day I just felt actually, no, that's not how it happened. What really happened was I had the idea, and then I sat on it for a year,
Okay.
working
Okay.
up the nerve to actually do it.
Yeah.
And then I pulled my family like, should it be herbalismevents.com?
Uh-huh.
And then I had the idea HerbRally, and everyone voted that was the best name.
That's a great
And
name.
yeah, thank you. And like it has like a rah rah feeling to it, right?
It does.
And also I didn't want to pigeonhole myself just for events and everything. So yeah, so I sat on it for a year, the idea, and then I finally decided to pay for like a $5 a month Squarespace account or something like that. And then I just decided I had this idea that everything had to be perfect from the get. I wanted like this world map where you could click on the state and like have it zoom in and do all this like crazy stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized it could just be a list. And then I with a like a lower barrier to entry, I decided I'm just going to start listing events on this Squarespace website, and then I'm just going to iterate and add to it over time. And that's exactly what I did. The birth of HerbRally was just listing events with a really shitty logo at the top of the screen, and
Yeah,
and that's how it started.
that is awesome. And it's such a good reminder that, you have to start somewhere,
Totally.
you got to start somewhere, start simply. Don't let perfectionism keep you from following your passion and doing what you love. And I love hearing that you got to that point and you're just like, I'm just going to start a $5, a $5 a month Square page. We'll start
Yeah,
with that and look what it's grown into. Now you're doing videos and you've got an educational site and you have, a place where you're advertising. So it's so exciting seeing what you've brought to fruition and then how it's evolved. So yeah,
totally.
congratulations. You've
Thank you.
done
And
it.
that, what's that?
I said you've been doing it. You're doing it.
That's
Um,
right.
so how long now have you been running HerbRally?
So it was May of 2015 when I finally decided to start.
Okay.
Yeah, so this May will be what, 9 years?
9 years. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And is that when you fully jumped off of like doing your own thing completely? Like you stopped working at Mountain Rose in 2015, or was it a few years before that? Or
And here's another thing that I always recommend to folks. I like to set long-term, uber realistic goals. So what I said, and I my former boss, I remember telling her this, Rachel. I said, I want to do Herb Rally for 10 years before I take the leap.
Mhm.
Um, because I wanted to set something very reasonable to do and like slowly work my way so I didn't have to make any like rash or dumb or greedy decisions. I just wanted to like build slow. So it wasn't 10 years, it was 7 years after starting it. That's when I essentially left Mountain Rose.
That's brilliant. You did one of those 7-year cycles.
It was that's right. Bringing it back to the beginning.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
like
It
circling
really
it
was
back.
7 years.
Yeah, well, it's like, it's you're gestating this whole thing and like you did it and really wisely. You weren't, like you saved up, you were,
Yeah.
it was a process. You didn't just dive in and hope for the best. It's like you built the business and that's, something I have learned the hard way. So I think it's helpful for your listeners and people like thinking about whatever they're going to do, starting an herbal business, starting a practice, like have a long-term plan, right? And then build slowly and don't expect to just rashly go out and, you're going to have a full practice or a full store or a full product line that's, thriving. It takes time
Yeah.
and, tenacity and stamina and all those things to like that stick to itiveness and the goals really help because you're like, this is where I'm going and where I want to be in 10 years. And of course, paths meander and stuff. And the good thing about them is like you end up doing things like podcasts in your hundredth episode of a
That's
podcast.
right.
So like, did you know you were going to be doing podcasts to start out with, or?
I've always been a big fan of podcasts. I feel like when I first started, that might have been too big of a dream or too big of a vision for myself.
Mhm.
Again, kind of going back to like a lot of my insecurities and stuff like that. I've always considered myself a very behind the scenes type of person. So funny enough, I did start a podcast in 2017. So I have been podcasting since 2017, but I wasn't a host of a show until last year. So the HerbRally podcast started out as recordings from herbalism conferences. I would pay people to record different episodes and everything like that, various lessons and everything. So it's always been me behind the scenes, and I finally was able to like even just do the intros and stuff. The
Uh,
whole time after that point, I was like, oh, eventually maybe I could be a host, but I was so scared to do it. And then finally last year I said, fuck it.
yeah.
And I just kind of went for it. And I'm so glad I did because now it's definitely the favorite part about Herb Rally that I do is the interviews.
That is awesome. I'm so glad you jumped off. Sometimes you just got to jump off. You don't know if you're going to fly, and here you are flying. So it's great. I'm excited that you delved into it. And sometimes it's helpful to be pushed past our comfort zone and just be like, I just got to do this. I got to try it. And sometimes you got to fail,
Totally. Can I read you something?
Yes, please.
So you mentioned you just got to dive, right? Is that what you said?
Like jump off the
Yeah, you
cliff.
got to jump off. So do you know the poet? He's like a children's poetry book, Shel Silverstein.
Oh yeah, I love him.
Yeah. So one of the most influential poems by him is called Diving Board, and I'm going to read it now.
Thank you. Thank
So this
you.
is Diving Board by Shel Silverstein. I wasn't planning on doing this, but what you just said there, and this has been hyper influential on me, is you've been up on that diving board, making sure that it's nice and straight. You've made sure that it's not too slick. You've made sure that it could stand the weight. You've made sure that the spring is tight. You've made sure that the cloth won't slip. You've made sure that it bounces right and that your toes can get a grip. And you've been up there since 5:30, doing everything but dive.
That's so good.
And that's kind of how I see a lot of the decisions, including, like telling Amanda, "Oh, I like you." I waited 4 years to tell her about my feelings.
Oh,
And then I said, I need to just dive and live with the results. And yeah, you could prepare as long as you want, but sometimes you just got to go for it.
you do. Jump in, and look. Now you're married to her.
That's right.
So
Co-owner.
yeah, co-owner, exactly. I mean, she's amazing, and
Yeah,
I someday we'll maybe get her on the show. But yeah,
absolutely.
shout out to Amanda because
Yeah,
I'm sure. I mean, you're both partners in this whole process, and you're the front man, and she's the queen behind the scenes,
that's
and
right. That's right. I like that.
she's amazing. I mean, so shout out
Hi,
to Amanda.
Amanda.
Is she there?
No,
Hey.
she's dog sitting actually, but yeah.
Gotcha. Anyways, so
Yeah,
yeah, and you met her at Mountain Rose. It took you 4 years to ask her out.
that's right. Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. And just a little story about that was I remember I heard that we got a new photographer, which
Uh-huh.
was Amanda. And for whatever reason, I had a little joke. I don't know if I told you this, Krista, or not, but I had a little joke. I was like, I'm going to go as long as I can without meeting our new creative person because um, creative and marketing, I was in the marketing department. We work hyper closely together. And
Yeah.
I remember I tried going as long as I could without meeting her just for whatever reason, just as a joke. And I think I made it a month. And then finally
Oh.
my boss made me meet her. And then right when I saw her, I was like smitten, So
You were
then I was like,
staving off being smitten.
it was actually yeah, it was like torture for like 4 years because I was just totally in love with her
Oh.
um and then finally I was like, oh, I have to tell her, so I'll just live with the result because she's my coworker. I work with her 40 hours a week. Like I don't want to make things awkward.
Yeah, work stuff could get awkward. Well, good job being so patient. I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
thanks.
Wow. Well, it was worth the wait, wasn't
That's
it?
right. Very
Yeah,
much so.
yeah, you're a dynamic duo, the two of
That's
you.
right.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, and I love what you bring together and, in and of yourselves. So, yeah, beautiful. Well worth the wait, even though I'm impressed you waited that long. I would never wait.
Thanks. Might have been 3.5 years. I don't
That's
know.
long enough, honey.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my gosh. So now like I'm curious, how many hours a week are you spending working on HerbRally and like versus the podcast versus like what Amanda's doing? Can you break that down a little bit for us? Like your time.
Totally. Yeah. I actually did the math, and it was more than I realized. As far as the herbalist hour goes,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we'll give booking the guest, we'll give it 15 minutes.
Okay.
Uh, Researching, I always spend about an hour per
Okay.
guest. Maybe
Okay.
that's low, I don't know. Setup and everything before the interview is 15 minutes. The interview itself is generally around an hour, although we're
Mhm.
already going over on this, but we'll keep it rolling. Editing the interview is, I want to say, and Amanda, feel free to correct me, is probably, it depends on if it's in person or on Zoom. Zooms are a little easier, but
Mhm.
that we'll give 2.5 hours to editing,
Wow.
upload and description, 30 minutes. The audio version is another about hour of time that I have to dedicate to creating the separate audio file. So I
Mhm.
think all in all, it's about 6.5 hours per episode. which would be about 13 hours per week.
Wow.
And I want to say all in all for HerbRally stuff, Amanda and I probably spend around 35-ish hours per week each.
Wow.
So it's a pretty hefty chunk of our time as the herbalist hour.
Yeah, that's a lot because you're doing
Yeah.
2 episodes a week. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
for all of us out here who listen, it's amazing. I just really want us all to know like how much time and effort you're putting into it because a lot of people think like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast and then, you know,
Right.
very short-winded and it's a process. It's like you said, like setting these
Big time.
goals and then all these steps to execute it and then to stay consistent with it. And you've done it 100 episodes. I am proud of you. And are you
Thank
going to
you.
continue doing these? Like, do you want to continue doing interviews or?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say there's some potential in the future at some point we might go down to an episode a week, but
Yeah,
honestly, it'll probably stay at 2 episodes a week for the foreseeable future. But
yeah.
yeah, I have no plans of stopping. Like I said before, it's my favorite part about HerbRally, and yeah, we'll just keep it rolling.
Yeah. Do you think of like, do you ever want to teach some classes? Because I'm curious. I mean, like, are there other things in the pipeline? I'm just curious about your future with this.
Yeah, I, as far as teaching goes, that's another one of those major hurdles I'd have to get over, like confidence wise.
Yeah.
Public speaking is not my favorite thing to do, even though it's weird because technically a few thousand people technically do listen to this podcast. But like
Yeah.
for whatever reason, when I get in front of a giant room, like that's very nerve-wracking for me. Uh, Regardless, my passion really lies in combining saving money with nutrition. So I want to keep fleshing out the art of frugal nutrition, that free course that we have. And I feel like I've quasi half-assed it this past 6 months, and I want to continue to add to that. I've got some ideas for that.
Great.
So yeah, I want to teach in that way, but I also want to bring in more guest teachers to present on how we can all eat healthy on a budget.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily herbalism, but it is like peripherally related and definitely something with grocery prices going up. I feel like it's an incredibly important topic for folks to learn about.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm so
Yeah.
glad you're offering that. And it is challenging. And, I'm raising a son who's
Yeah.
17 going on 18 this year, and he's starting to research his budget and like food budget. So I'll buy the course for him so he can, because
There you go.
he's doing the same similar things to what you did at the beginning, like he was starting to weightlift or lift weights and
Totally.
wants to be a little healthier. And he's like finally like, Mom, so those vitamins you told me to take for the last however many years and I've ignored you. Now everybody's saying to take them or to eat like this. So anyways, it's great you're offering that. And I think it's really helpful because grocery prices have skyrocketed since the pandemic and it's depressing and it's affecting everyone. And it's, if we can, be more frugal and you're doing a great job with saving and all, you know what I mean? Like you're good at managing your money. So thank you for offering that to all of us and
Absolutely.
you're providing that service, I should say, that we can
Thank you.
your class. Yeah, it's important. Um, there was some question within that I was curious about. Sorry, but I just it went away for a moment. Oh yeah, are you making a living? Like, I don't know if that's too personal of a question, but
No,
you're,
it's
I
fine.
mean, that's like a full-time job. So 30, you're each putting 35 hours a week.
Yeah.
And have you gotten to the point after almost 10 years or, or so that you can like pay your bills or not have another part-time job? I mean, how is that going for you?
Yeah, so great question, and it's definitely not too personal. It's all good. And that was one of the reasons I brought up like the 10-year goal earlier, is
Yeah.
because during that whole time, that 10-year span, I was very adamant about personal finance and frugality and saving money. It's funny, a lot of people have like this allergy to having money in the bank. They like, have you ever heard like it's burning a hole in your pocket or something like that? Like
Yeah.
people, if they have money, like they want to spend it. But I've always been a lifelong saver, and
Mhm.
I found great power and freedom in that. And so I've made it a big obsession of mine to uh, seek out information on how to live a more frugal life. And you know,
Yeah.
there's frugal and cheap and all that, but then you're also essentially being creative with your resources, and you're also being, less consumeristic, and a lot of positives come from this whole frugal living thing. So that's all to say the 10-year goal included saving up money to make that leap, to be able to put myself in a position to make a living strictly from HerbRally. And yes, technically HerbRally is sustaining us. Although I will say this, we are seeking different ways of being creative with our time.
Yeah.
And since HerbRally is essentially our day job at this point, it is our day job. Amanda and I have both picked up pet sitting, which is why I said she's
Oh,
dog sitting right now.
yeah.
So we are both currently side hustling, although she gets the vast majority of clients because she's I don't know, more desirable as a
So
pet sitter.
adorable.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, we do HerbRally full time as our day job, but then we have side hustles as pet sitters.
That's awesome. My sister does that too. Like she used to work full time, but then on weekends she would like do dog walking and dog
Absolutely.
sitting. And it's like, anyways, she's like, that's my retirement. I'm just putting little extra away all the time for my retirement. So I think it's
Yep.
brilliant. And she's frugal and she's wise. She has more money in the bank than I do. So Um, and can I ask you, do you have like a certain percentage that you try to save for like when you get paid? Like, do you say put away 5 or 10% of, or how do
Yeah,
you?
so I use I almost said project management software. No, we use project management software for work,
Okay.
but for our home finances, we use a tracking system for all of our
Great.
money. Well, I do, and it's called
Yeah.
YNAB,
Okay.
YNAB, which is an acronym called You Need a Budget. And a lot of people might know about, say, Mint.com. They went out of business. YNAB is, to me, the premier budgeting software. And
Great.
so I track it connects to our bank account.
Uh-huh.
I'm not an affiliate or anything like that, but I just always recommend this to folks. And it takes a while to get into. So when you first start doing this, it's habitual. You have to build the habit. But once you do it, you get excited because you see where your money's going. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so we use this software called YNAB, and every dollar that comes in, I assign it to different categories.
Yeah.
And I like hyper nerd out on this stuff. I love it so much, and I don't know why. It might just be innate in me. But just to say,
Great.
like what you said, what do we save? I mean, I want to say we save a lot, and that's because I know all the different categories of money where it's going.
Yeah.
But what are we saving for? Retirement,
Yeah.
but also the various like home projects, this or that. I guess it depends on what you define as saving. So
Yeah.
technically we save a lot of it. Then
Yeah.
again, I try to keep our like fixed expenses as low as possible,
Great.
um, because that's how I roll. But yes, it's just really important to know where your money's going, because then it's
Yeah.
not just some hypothetical
Yeah.
out in the ether, like I think I spent this much, because then your spending could start getting out of control if you're not actually sure where it's going.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
bravo and great job tracking that. And I think it's helpful for all of your listeners to hear that. We don't want to, like people are like, oh, it's like you were saying, what'd you say, a hole in your pocket or
Yeah, burning a
it's,
hole in my pocket.
yeah, it's like this hot coal or something. Like I got to spend it. I used to have a partner like that and it was challenging every month when they
And
came
that
and knocking to shut off your power. I'm like, this is awful. It's not a comfortable way to live, and it's so. Anyways, good job. It's nice to plan, and we all got to make a living, and
Yep.
eventually save up. Save up for retirement and all of that. So
Right.
good, great job. Thank you for sharing that. I was curious about that,
For
and
sure.
yeah, can I ask you a few other herbal questions?
Yeah, please.
So I was curious, you've been talking about frugal nutrition and just curious how you like to integrate herbs into your life. It's like tea tinctures, topicals, food, fermentation, flower essences, smudging, smoking, hydrosols. There's so many
Abs
different ways, to meditation, dream work, like there's a full spectrum here. So I'm curious how you integrate them in your life most frequently.
all the above,
Okay.
You said fermentation just now, and I was like, I didn't even think about that originally, but yes,
Yeah.
I'm an avid fermenter. Sauerkraut,
Ye-
smreka, which is a Bosnian fermented juniper berry drink. Um, Actually, Amanda's taken over all the smreka making, which is awesome. But yeah, I would say, I mean, I consume a nourishing herbal infusion every single day,
Right.
even if it's just a sip. A
Yep.
lot of people, get dogmatic, like it has to be this much herb per mason jar, and it has to be this much drink per day to get the benefits. But I'm very much less dogmatic about it. I think if I'm consuming some sort of nourishing herbal infusion every day, it's hyper beneficial to me. So yeah, I consume that. Tincture, I take St. John's wort tincture every single day, even just a tiny amount,
Mhm.
because it was recommended to me by a herbalist friend that might be a nice thing to do. I drink a lot of teas. You mentioned smoking. Smoking, I actually do smoke tobacco on occasion. I smoke cigars
Wow.
on a quasi-regular basis, which I would say is probably some form of herbal medicine or potentially a bad habit, I guess, depending on who you ask. And I'm an avid cook. I cook a lot of food in this house. I would probably say 80% of the meals. Amanda, I know you're listening. I think she would agree. I don't want to like throw shade at any, like she loves to cook. She's a great cook too, but
Yeah.
culinary has been a lifelong obsession for me. So yeah, I always infuse herbs in my daily life that way. But yeah, I would say it's just kind of a lifestyle. That's kind of how I integrate herbalism into my life. I was mentioning earlier about walks. I go on a lot of walks,
Mm.
and the other day it was beautiful, snowing out. I was with my daughter and Amelia, and we went through this park, and there was this beautiful tree. I don't know what it is because I'm kind of new to the area. I'm still learning, the flora, but
Oh,
it was an evergreen of some sort. And I just stopped and I was like, I have to give this a hug, kind of going back to the woo stuff. So, like,
yeah.
yeah, I would say herbalism infuses my life in so many ways. And it's interesting because it's also we were talking about this earlier, it's my day job too. It's been my day job for 13 years now, if you count Mountain Rose Herbs and HerbRally. And sometimes I find myself feeling guilty for no particular reason if I'm, indulging in some, like, say I'm a big NBA fan, National Basketball Association.
Okay.
I find myself feeling like guilty, like, oh, I have to be like educating myself more on this or that subject. But I'm like, no, we need to be well-rounded individuals, and sometimes we need to just turn our brain off. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I would say herbalism is throughout my life every single day in so many different ways, and a lot of the ways you mentioned:
Excellent.
smoking, aromatherapy, culinary.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite, like, I'm just curious, like, do you have any favorite teas you're drinking regularly? I know you were on an oats kick for a long time when you were out here. And
Yeah,
anyways, curious, what teas do you drink or
I
stuff do you drink?
drink Camellia sinensis
Oh,
quite a
okay,
bit.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yum, yum.
Um, I still do, like, I have an oat straw infusion going on right now upstairs. Um, I'm in the basement for those wondering, upstairs. But I drink linden. I like
Mhm.
linden,
Mm,
nettle. I do a lot of like singles.
great.
Uh, yeah, hawthorn leaf and flower has been big
Mm,
for me.
yum.
Yeah, so I just kind of like tried and true.
Yeah.
Schisandra, I like Schisandra.
Do you cold infuse your Shazandra or do you hot infuse
Yeah,
it or?
I have done that. I've done it both ways, but yeah, I typically, if I'm doing like a standard Schisandra tea, I'll do it like a hot infusion with a little tea strainer.
Okay, I was curious.
Yeah,
It tastes so different depending on how you prepare it.
yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's fun. And so Shazandra, Linden,
yeah,
Camellia sinensis. Do you do the fermented form or the green
yeah.
of?
So, pu'er is one of my favorites, and
Um,
that's a fermented Camellia sinensis.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if Tracy's listening, but shout out Auntie Tracy. She just sent me like a little tea set today, so and a little tea tray. So I'm stoked to have a little tea ceremony with some
Oh,
pu'er. So, which she also gave me the pu'er tea. So,
love it.
yeah, I like tea. I also drink coffee tea, or I guess it's just called coffee. But yeah,
I call it coffee.
I am trying to drink a little less of that. But yes,
Yeah.
but yeah, those, I would say those like kind of my tea herbal allies.
Awesome. Great. I was
Yeah.
curious. And what were your gateway herbs? Like starting out, did you have a few plants that like were like, oh, drink me or
Yeah, well, I always say that my gateway herb That's funny. I use that term too, gateway herbs, like gateway drug or whatever.
Yeah,
Gateway,
like,
my gateway herb was dandelion.
oh,
And
awesome.
this was when I want to say I was 19. I was living on campus in Eugene, and it was just like this constant riffraff of people coming and going. And you remember the days, Krista.
Oh,
And
yes, I
and
do.
I remember this one guy, he came over for a party, and in the front yard, probably, I guess now knowing that I'm an herbalist, like springtime, a dandelion was popping up, and he was like, "Did you know you could eat those?" And it just like rocked my world. And
Awesome.
so I like nibbled on some. I was like, "Holy shit! Like this isn't from the grocery store. You could eat dandelion. That is amazing." And it totally floored me. So to this day, I credit dandelion with just being like that is my gateway herb. I've got it tatted on my forearm.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Great.
yeah. So it's yeah. I've always been incredibly fond of it. It's on the HerbRally logo, and yeah, I'll always say that's the gateway herb.
Okay,
Yeah.
exciting. And just for your own personal preference, do you consume the leaves? Do you like the roots, the roasted roots, or all of the above?
Yeah, I would say I've consumed every bit of it. Although I will say this, I've always heard every bit of it's consumable. I've never consumed the stem. I don't know if that actually is. I know it's got that little latex in there. But yeah, I've had the flowers, the roots, the leaves. I do all of the above. And it's one of those things when you are infatuated with plants and you just it's part of your lifestyle. You know that feeling when you see your first dandelion of the season? It
Oh,
just
yeah.
brings so much joy. And that's the way I mean, we all have lots of relationship with lots of plants like that, but dandelion is definitely one of those things where when you see it and it's just like, ah, yes, here you are, you know?
Yeah. And it's such a happy plant too. It's like vibrant and
Absolutely.
gold and like springtime. And you're like, there's the first dandelion. I love that feeling. As they start poking up. And yeah, I feel that way about a number of herbs, but I'm like, it is so exciting watching them emerge, especially from the snow. Or
Right.
like, I don't know if they have skunk cabbage there, but that'll be a fun one that like if you I don't that might
I
be
don't know that,
okay.
but all over Oregon and Washington, I've seen it all over there. But I'm
I,
presuming you
I
have it in Arcata.
Yeah, we have an Arcata, but there are a couple of different species that grow in the Midwest and East Coast, and they emerge out of the snow and you'll see steam forming around them. Anyways, it's kind of cool. You'll notice it on one of your walks if you're in a wet area or
I
something.
would love
Or
that. And
wetlands, so
one of my favorite common names is swamp lantern, which is another alternative name for skunk cabbage. By the way, this is Columbine's days. Am I correct? Is it Lysichiton americanum? Did I get that
yeah,
right?
good job.
Yeah. See, I haven't
Nice.
said that in so long.
It's got a lot of consonants in there. Like you
Yeah.
did very gracefully. Bravo.
Thank you.
Yes. What's another herb that comes to mind? Let me. What?
Oh, Verbena hastata. I don't know.
Nice. That works.
Yeah,
Yeah. How he is. I love his botany nerdiness.
totally.
You gotta know your plants.
That's right.
I want to kill yourself or your students for
That's right.
sure. Um,
Absolutely.
um, all right. So gateway herb was dandelion. Do you have any, like when we think of some of the different tastes of herbs, like astringent, bland, bitter, pungent,
Hmm.
sour, salty? What am I missing? Sweet. I always forget sweet. I'm like, what? How could I forget sweet? But I don't eat that many sweet things. What tastes do you gravitate towards?
Wow, that is a great question. And it's funny you forgot sweet because that might have been the flavor I would forget as well.
Uh-huh.
I am not a sweet tooth. I
Mhm.
live in a house with two sweet tooths, and I'm not. I've never been wired that way. I've always been more of the savory umami side.
Mm,
But yeah, if we're talking like herbal medicine, I like to stretch my palate for whatever reason. I like to try weird, funky tasting stuff, bitter. Then again, maybe that's just me like trying to stretch myself. If I'm being honest, if I were to say my favorite flavor, it'd probably be umami,
mhm.
just because I love the savory stuff in life. But I like rich. I like
Yeah.
rich. But yeah, if we're talking like medicinal action, hmm, yeah, maybe we'll go astringent,
Really? Okay. That's curious. See,
just
that's
just based on like green tea.
tea. Yeah,
that kind of
that is
thing.
definitely
So
astringent.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want to front and be like, oh, just bring on the bitter. Give me more bitter.
We know it's good for us, so we do
That's
it.
right.
Right? And
Exactly.
then
That's kind of why I like it for
me
sure.
too. Me
But if
too.
we're
And then
talking pleasurable, I don't, yeah.
yeah, I hear you. Umami
Yeah.
is
There's a
umami or salty. Enjoy your bitter right now.
mm,
Um,
exactly, exactly.
that's like the gateway drink for a lot of people.
That's
Beer
right.
and hops. No, I
That's
mean,
right.
it could be if that's what's in that mug, which I won't ask. Um,
So Wisconsin brewski.
Wisconsin. Wisconsin. Oh yeah,
That's
that's
right.
the forward land, right? Isn't it the motto of Wisconsin? Forward.
Oh, oh shoot, I don't know that one. I'll have
I
to.
think it is. It's like forward with an exclamation.
I like that. All right, it's the
Yeah.
motto. I'm gonna look that
Okay.
up.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
Because I was
All
like,
right.
huh, I wonder if it's more forward than the left coast or the west coast. I was going to ask you, like, are they pretty forward there?
Yeah, where I live, I would say it's incredibly balanced. You got people of all different, if we're talking political, like people of all different political beliefs here. And and I'm not a super political person. I don't really delve into that too much, but from what little I know, I want to say Wisconsin is like a swing state. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so from what I could feel about that, I do feel like there's people of all different walks of life here. So,
Good.
and Appleton specifically doesn't feel too one way or the other. So yeah,
Nice. Nice to have a
yeah,
balance.
absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
I won't delve any more into politics.
There you go.
I was just curious. I was like, oh, the
Yeah,
forward state, because I was thinking,
yeah,
oh, maybe it was the land of the lakes, but that's Minnesota. Anyways, a lot of lakes all around back in
that's
the
right.
Midwest. And I was curious if you had like, okay, do you have any herbs that you're just ugh, like you don't like? You think of that flavor and you have an aversion to them or you hate them. I'm just
Oh,
kidding. Not
again,
that
like
you.
it kind of goes back to my adventurous palate. I want to
Yeah.
say no. In
Oh,
fact,
good.
I will just say the only time I've really ever been repulsed by a food or a flavor was canned lima beans when I was a child. And that is literally it. Because I seriously think I have one of the most adventurous palates
Awesome.
imaginable. And I thrive on that. And I feel like I've bestowed that upon Amelia because since she was a kid, I've always stressed trying things and
Yeah.
expanding your palate and your taste will change. And to this day,
Great.
she's become a much more adventurous eater.
Good job.
And yeah, thank you. And I've always just naturally been that way. Um, oh man, I'm gonna forget the video. I did a video. Asafoetida. There we go. Do you know asafoetida?
Oh yeah, the devil's dung or something like that. Isn't that is that like
Yeah, and it's a resin and an Ayurvedic medicine, and they use it in culinary in India. And I did a video on it because Bevan Clare, shout out Bevan Clare, sent me a bottle of it because I said I never had it before in our interview, and I tasted it and I was like, that's kind of good.
Is it what does it taste like? That is one thing.
It's sulfuric, like garlicky kind of.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely funky. But I tried it in some water.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. I had no problem with it. It was
Great.
strong. It was strong, but
I bet it was.
yeah,
Yeah. So sulfury, it's like, making kraut. Somebody walks in, you're
right.
like,
Exactly.
I swear I didn't fart. Um,
Right.
I've always wondered what that plant tasted like as well. And for some, I don't know why devil's dung is like the name that pops up in my mind as the common
Interesting.
name for asafoetida, but I'll have to
Ferula is the genus.
yeah.
Asafoetida is a common name, I think. And yeah, I've never heard Devil's Dung, but I can
I
see why.
think I'll check Michael Moore has a book and I feel like that was in there, like, that old catalog back there. I'm like ripping through that. I think I'll check it out, let you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
But it makes sense if it's sulfury smelling. All right. So I'm curious, like say you were stranded on a desert island,
Hmm.
right? Like some not even a desert island, some island off the coast of Minnesota, somewhere. Like what three herbs, 1 to 3 herbs would you bring with you if you're like, I'm not gonna have access to any other herbs?
Oh wow. I feel
Sorry.
like there's so many better herbalists that would answer this question, but I feel like, well, I mean, could it be like food or would it be just like
Yeah.
herbs? Okay.
No limits here.
Yeah, I feel like I would have to bring I feel like I would have to bring oats, like oatmeal.
Yep.
I'm
Great.
a good Scottish boy.
You are a good Scottish boy.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll go something and are these like cut and sifted dried herbs, or is this like just plants to have around?
Whatever you want.
Okay.
It could
Yeah.
be like your favorite tincture. It could be whatever. You're
Yeah. I feel like I would have a blue vervain
nice.
to keep my nerves all good and fresh and calm. And yeah, I feel like a good you all around just plant to have around would be like say the plantain or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Great.
So we'll
Awesome.
go.
Yeah, that's good. No, that's good. I was just curious. Those are good.
I've never performed that exercise though. I like it.
I know. It's like, oh, on the spot.
Yeah.
Um, and would you like to share any profound plant experiences you've had? Just or like, holy,
Oh,
that worked so well, or
yeah. Profound plant experiences. So I would say in my early 20s, I had psychedelic experiences with psilocybin,
yeah.
which is not necessarily a plant. I don't want to say it's a mushroom. And that definitely changed my life in a lot of ways. And perhaps that's like the cliche example. But I will say this, in my early 20s, I used it recklessly, and
Uh-huh.
even late teens, I would use it as a party drug where I would do it with lots of people.
Yeah.
And now, when I do partake, it would be, much more reserved with intentionality. But besides that, I would say taking the Columbine School of Botanical Studies as a whole, as a container, was my profound plant experience. And I would say that because we talked about the wall of green earlier. Nature to me before was just kind of like background noise.
Yeah.
And then after taking a herbalism apprenticeship, it became relationships with probably hundreds of species.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, hundreds might be an exaggeration, but I definitely could go in the at least Oregon old growth now and have relationships with plant species and be excited to see them and see them individually as plants. And I had never had that before. And it was just so incredibly transformative.
Mhm.
So I would say if you use psilocybin, be intentional and definitely go to an herbalism apprenticeship in person. Although online school is great, if you're able to eventually afford some sort of online school or sorry, in-person school
Yeah.
where they teach you about the plants in their actual uh,
Habitat.
habitat, their ecosystem, do that because it was absolutely life-changing for me. Being out there for hours, even if it's raining, while you're out there, oh my gosh, yeah, that was the most transformative thing by far.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, being out with the plants. I remember Michael Moore, not to take up time, but like, Michael Moore used to
do it.
bring these crazy places.
Yeah,
And in the middle of nowhere, like he would just pull up and then boom, you're like, there's this mountain creek that's got these beautiful gentian and veratrum and sometimes osha or like this magical places, and you can like feel the essence of the mountains and the water and the animals there, and there's like different dung, and you're like, oh, who's that? It's so cool. I mean, once you get tapped into that, it's otherworldly almost. I mean, it's this worldly. It's the real world.
it is incredible.
Yeah, it's
Um, just a little aside, we're watching a show right now called White Lotus, which is fucking crazy. And there's a character in it where it's this young man, he's probably like 20-ish, and all he does is he's in his phone all day. And he's on the beach and he sees a whale for the first time go over. And I think it just transforms him. And I really do feel like nature does have that cure. It really does. You have these profound experiences when you're just so present
yeah,
in nature. So
yeah,
yeah, and I don't want to like neglect to say I had those experiences with the Arcto School in Portland as well. The only reason why I would say Columbine's was more influential for me was obviously because it was the first time having those experiences. So that's why it was so incredible for me. And that's why I say it doesn't matter which herb school you're going to in person. It's just spend time with the plants. And if you're with a seasoned teacher, that's even better. Christa Sinadinos.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's interesting because, I've taught classes for almost 30 years now,
Yeah. Wow.
20, more than 25. I've been an herbalist for 30 years and, yeah, I'm seeing, and even watching your show, I'm like, wow, there's so many young herbalists
Yeah.
and it's great. It's so wonderful to see like the interest, but it like reminds me of when I went to study the plants and there were literally like 3 herbal schools.
Right.
California school, I think Susan Weed had an apprenticeship and maybe Deb, actually like 4, and then Michael Moore school. And that was pretty much all I knew about at the time. I
Yeah.
didn't know Howie then, and I
Right.
don't know, in relation to Michael Moore, like where if he was also teaching then, but it was before the internet. Like we didn't even have the internet then. So you just like up and moved. But yes, studying with a seasoned teacher is such a gift. Like it's really easy to be, as a new teacher to be enthusiastic and you can like parrot the information or
Right.
say teacher said, there's a lot of smart people out there and there's a lot of information and they can just blah 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 blah, repeat what their teacher said. But like having the lineage and the respect for your elders like you do, your teachers and
Yeah.
those who brought you into the world, and then people who have experience with the plants, there's like so much depth and richness with that. And being in an herb school is magical wherever you go to school. Like there's something really special about getting together with that intentionality every day with a seasoned teacher or teachers that like hold that space. It's like there's nothing like it. It's so special. So special. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so blessings to all the amazing herbal teachers and schools that are carrying on this, this lineage of teaching, it's a
Amen.
beautiful thing. So, and thank you for sharing, so many herbalists and exposing them, for the world to know more about. It's like, I'm like, oh, I've never heard of them, or, it's just fun to hear different perspectives too. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of young people doing this. It's great. It's awesome. So it's sweet.
I really do feel like that's my role, or at least currently that's my role, and I absolutely love it, and I feel very grateful to get to do that work for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, like, for your listeners, like, do you have like beginning herbal books or professional herbal books that you'd recommend? Like any, I'm not doing that in that way. I swear to God. I'm like, so
I know you're not. I know you're not. I know
I'm
you're
not.
not.
You don't even have to say it. But no, I'm curious because there are some great like beginner books out there, and I think you've had a few of the authors on your show.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm curious which ones are some of your favorites because there's some excellent herb books out there.
I'm going to talk about 2 books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because to your point, there's so many out there.
Yeah.
But I did want to highlight 2. We'll start with the beginner first. And the reason I bring this up, so this is I just had her on the show, Mimi Hernandez.
Oh,
Just wrote a book. It's National Geographic Herbal, 100 herbs from the world's healing traditions. And so I got this in the mail quasi recently. And as I was prepping for her show, I interviewed her 2 days ago.
oh,
I was just blown away by the organization of it and
awesome.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of beautiful photos in here, but
Gorgeous. Yeah.
I will just say the way that it's laid out is just it's really kind of original. I really love it. It's not
Awesome.
super like recipe heavy, so there's definitely like better books out there as far as like recipes and stuff go, but that's not the intent.
Mhm.
So just to here, let me do a little
Type it in there. I can't wait to get
I've
her
got a
book.
whole Word doc. So the way she lays it out is there's different sections, and after each section it says herbalism. So I'm not going to repeat it like 8 or 9 times, but
Mhm.
there's different sections. It's sensory, kitchen, apothecary, topical, garden, weedy, woodland, community, and global. And
Beautiful.
I just thought it was a really fun way to lay it out. And obviously, a lot of the plants, because there's 100 plants in here,
Yeah.
obviously they could be totally different segments, but I just thought the way that it was laid out and thought through was just incredibly smart and just creative. And Mimi's just a fabulous person, an herbalist. And yeah, I was just really impressed just delving
Oh,
into the book and being like, wow, what a cool. I really do think it's a great beginner book too, because if you are someone who's really on the outskirts of herbalism and you want to be inspired to get more into this world, this is like the one of the perfect spots to start, because there's so many different traditions woven throughout. And also, I'll just shout out Dr. Tierna Lodog to the forward, who I'm also incredibly fond of, and she's
yeah.
had high praise for the book as well. So I'm just gonna
Beautiful.
say that because it's top of mind and it's right at my feet. And I just interviewed Mimi Hernandez yesterday, and I that's not to say there's not a million other great herbalism books I could recommend.
Yeah.
But that's a great spot for the beginner. And yeah, do you have any thoughts about that? Or
I have not gotten her book, and I'm so thrilled to get it. She's a brilliant herbalist, and she's just so respectful and appreciative of her lineage.
yeah,
And, she's been at it a long time. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It looks like a beautiful book. Do you want to say the title again?
yeah, it's
Just so for your readers or for your
so yeah, readers, listeners, all the above.
viewers.
It's the National Geographic Herbal 100 Herbs from the World's Healing Traditions by Mimi Hernandez.
Go Mimi.
Go Mimi.
Yeah, she's
I'm
great.
really excited to release that episode. I think that'll be live next week. So
I'll listen. I can't wait to
yeah,
listen.
yeah, it's a good one. So full of knowledge and just a great storyteller. And so as far as like the advanced herbalist, do you know what book I'm going to say? So it's the Essential Guide to Western Botanical Medicine by Christa Sinadinos, Sinadinos, the host of the Herbalist Hour, at least for today. And the reason I want to say I recommend it is A, it's a tome, if I'm using that word correctly. It's a giant effing book. I mean, I just flipped open and that's page 704. But besides that, I want to say the main reason why I'd recommend it to your like experienced herbalists is because some of the most respected herbalists that I know, like the people that have been in the game the longest, speak so highly of this book. So I spent 3 hours with Paul Bergner, I want to say 16 to 18 months ago. And we asked him on video. Actually, the video is lost because it got stolen in Oakland. But we asked him what book he recommends the most. And I'm not kidding you, talked about this book for 20 minutes.
Oh, thank you,
We talked
Paul.
about this book for 20 minutes. And if someone like Paul Bergner is speaking so highly of it, it's not just Paul. Like there's been countless herbalists that have recommended the book to me and to the audience and all the above. And so it's just it's a labor of love from Christa over the course of, I think you spent 48 years creating it or something like that. And
Well, I spent 9 years actually, 9 years.
I was being exaggerative, facetious, but yeah, it's
I was like 48. I'm like, I started writing it when I was 4 years old.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
No.
it's a labor of love. There's just just flipping through. There's so much information in it, but mostly the reason I would recommend it is based on the praise that it's received from all of the highly experienced herbalists that I know. So
Thank you. Thank you.
of
I
course,
really, I wasn't asking for
and
that.
I know you were. I
Thank
know you
you.
weren't. But
I'm
when
like, I was like Jill Stanberry. She's got some great books, but thank you immensely. Thank you. Thank you.
and I couldn't recommend Jillian Stanberry's, although only because I'm not like I've never read it. So
Yeah.
if I'm sure she's great. I've taken her class before, or one of her classes. Like she's incredible too, but I don't have the book, so I can't recommend it.
Well, thank you. I am honored, and I'm looking so forward to getting Mimi's book as well because she's been at it a while. Yeah,
Absolutely.
herbalists who are practicing, you want to get their books, Anybody can write
Absolutely.
an herb book, but it helps to have people who've practiced for
That's a
decades,
great point.
you know.
Yeah.
I'm very honored that Paul said that because he's been in practice, I think, 40 years. I mean, or at least 40
Oh,
years.
over 50.
Okay, thank
And
you.
the reason I know that is because he has a class that he teaches called How to Be an Herbalist in 20 Years, and then it's How to Be a master herbalist in 30 years, and now he's to the point where he's saying How to Be a master herbalist in 50 years. So
He keeps adding a decade to
exactly,
that. I love
it's
that.
tongue in cheek. Exactly.
My one of my teachers, Adam Seller, talked about how you shouldn't teach materia medica unless you've worked with a plant for at least 10 years. He's like, unless you have 10 years experience with it and practice and consuming it, you should not be talking about it because you don't really know it. It's just like you're shaking the herb's hand or something, you know? And I
Totally.
really loved that aspect of his teaching because it was always an integrity. And it's like you can, again, you can be a parrot, but to really know that plant and to teach your students about that plant or the ecosystem, the botany. I mean, there's just so much depth to each plant that I really appreciated that he taught that way because not many people do that. And I see like schools are like, we're an herb school, and they've had like 2 years of herbal experience, and it's like, so I mean, nothing wrong with that. I started young too, so
You got to start
anyways.
somewhere.
Yes. Anyways, so I know I'm like, we just keep chatting here. I'm
It's
sorry to keep you going.
yeah. Oh,
I
I'm good. I've got whatever you want to do.
Okay. So I'm curious, like, okay, I consider you a very patient person. Do you consider
Hmm.
yourself a patient person and a good listener?
Well, I would say like the cliche or stereotypical example is like it depends on who you ask. Like
Uh-huh.
Amanda on certain days might be like Mason is an impatient asshole. So it just depends. Like I think I am when it comes to lots of situations. But it's definitely something that I continuously strive to work on because yeah, I definitely can be impatient, but when it comes to stuff like this,
Yeah.
I'm all about listening to what other people have to say.
That's really amazing. Like, I
Yeah.
think you're a skilled listener in this context, and we never want to ask the partners because, of course, they see the worst of us. Like if you could come
Facts.
with, like the worst behavior, the worst swear words, all this stuff, like it's gonna be our partner, our craziest behavior. So I
Exactly.
won't ask Amanda. But I'm sending you kudos for being such a good listener because it is a skill, and I think you're an excellent listener and interviewer.
Thank you.
And I was curious, like, have your listening skills evolved quite a bit since you've been a podcaster or since you've been doing these for the last year? Or
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know if they've necessarily improved, although they probably have without actually me noticing it.
yeah.
What's improved is my ability to have less inhibitions and my ability to speak my mind when I'm chatting with a person.
Yeah.
I have this tough time balancing between like say writing down notes
Yeah.
to refer back to in the interview and also try to maintain focus on what the person's actually saying.
Mhm.
It's definitely something I'm still trying to get better at.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, I mean, as far as like the interviewing process goes,
Yeah.
I'm I'm here and the audience is here to learn from the guest. So when I ask them a question, I'm hoping they give it their full answer, and then when they're done, that's when it's time to move on. That's kind of how I see it.
Great.
The only time that I really interrupt, or at least that I try to interrupt, is when I feel like I'm actually adding to the conversation. Although I will say on occasion, I probably interrupt with like a corny joke or something like that.
That's awesome. I love corny jokes because,
Yeah,
they keep your audience engaged and they like
right.
break things up a little bit. And it's like, oh, I think it's refreshing. So I love corny jokes, but I'm goofy like that. So you were saying you don't usually interrupt, but I was curious, like how you handle a situation if somebody is just like rambling, or like mansplaining shit. Like, what do you do to keep things moving forward, or do you do anything to keep things moving forward?
I will tell you a story, and I'm not going to say any names, but I did interview one person once where they talked for 60 straight minutes, and I didn't know how to actually interrupt that person. So
Oh,
I just decided to let it go. And at the end of the hour of the person talking, I politely said that this we can't use the episode, unfortunately,
uh-huh.
because I don't know if they may. And that's the thing is maybe I needed to do a better job ahead of time explaining what a podcast is. you can't always assume that everyone knows that a podcast is a conversation, although I thought that maybe that person knew that. Regardless, that tested my limits. It tested my limits to the point where I was at the 30-minute mark being like, when do I say something? And I didn't feel comfortable because I don't know, the person just kept talking and talking, and I never felt like there was a breath. And so so that was the one time that happened. Other than that, like, honestly, mostly it's been great. And yeah, like, again, like, I very much consider myself a student. I just want to ask the questions that I want to know the answers to, and hopefully a lot of the audience wants to know the answer to.
Yeah.
And I would say this show is educational in format, but really what I like to do is I like to get to know the herbalist. So I want it to be kind of story driven and narrative driven and inspirational in some ways. So yeah, I want the herbalist to just kind of say their piece, and then when it feels comfortable, I have a hard time interrupting. So maybe that needs to be something I get better at. So
Yeah, I'm impressed that you were able to listen the whole time. I would pull like the Pee Wee Herman move or something. It's like, I'm sorry, Dottie. I'm losing connection.
yeah.
I remember him doing that at a payphone. He's like, or
Well,
like,
at the very end, I did say, well, that was about the time. So thanks for joining me.
that was
Yeah.
enough. My therapist is like, just do this, Krista. She's like, you could do this. And I'm like,
Does that talk
really?
to the hand?
Yeah. Stop. She's like, you're not getting the cues. You just put your hand.
I like that. I'll have to use that.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of tools. Sometimes you have family members that just don't stop. And it's like, oh my God. Anyways, or friends. I don't have that many kind of friends like that anymore, which is great. We kind of we weeded those out. Anyways, I had one other question. Well, I have other questions, but I'm curious if you are comfortable sharing. Have you had any herbal faux pas or like particularly embarrassing moments on like bloopers or things on your show or at conferences?
Yeah, I don't know, like, as far as the embarrassing stuff goes, it is interesting because one of the reasons why I didn't start the show sooner is because I had this like intense thought in my head. This is going to live on the internet forever. It's
Yeah.
never going to go away. And anytime someone from my high school could pull it up and just laugh at me and make fun of me and be like, ha ha ha, Mason, you're a horrible interview. I don't know, like, whatever kind of vulgar shit they want to say about me. And
Oh,
like, sounds really like, I don't know that, but that is how I would think. And I want to say, like, I didn't do it for so long because I was so nervous about screwing up or this or that. But the most embarrassing thing that happens on the show for me is just misspeaking or stuttering. Like, I stuttered yesterday or 2 days ago when I talked to Mimi. And the cool thing about actually getting outside of your comfort zone and pushing yourself in this way is when you actually do stutter and screw up, you get used to it and you realize it's not that big of a deal.
yeah.
And then you're not, and then you're like less afraid to do it the next time. So
Yeah.
so I have done that in episodes on the Herbalist Hour, and I just say, I'll even say, I've said this before, I say, Amanda, keep that in. Like, it
Yeah.
helps me
Good.
like exercise and practice, like, just being just fucking up and then just keeping it in, and
Yeah.
it's not being a big deal. And yeah, I think it's preparing me. I think it's helping me build thicker skin,
Good.
and I'm incredibly happy about that. That I kind of discovered that by accident. That it's just building resiliency in me, and caring less and less about what people think, because that's one of the beauties of getting older is you stop caring so much about what other people think. And yeah, the Herbalist Hour has been amazing for that. So embarrassing, yes, I have embarrassed myself quite a bit, and it's mostly from misspeaking, stuttering, and that kind of thing.
It's real. It happens, and we are human,
Yeah,
and thanks for giving your audience permission to witness that because, it's like things are so tampered with after podcasts. Like
right.
we've taken, put the perfectionism in everything, and people walk
Yeah,
around afraid to be themselves because of the ridiculous amount of pressure we put on ourselves to be perfect, or some of us. And
totally.
it's so nice to start releasing that. And like, the more you see other people like fucking up here and there, and you're like,
Yep,
we are human,
yep,
we weren't meant to be these perfect creatures speaking perfectly all the time. So bravo
absolutely.
for just being real and putting it out there and keeping the bloopers in. And I think people, or not bloopers, but whatever, stuttering, I do that all the time.
Totally.
Or I get like really excited and I'm like, it all comes out as one thing because I'm trying to explain a physiologic concept or something. And I was like, okay, let me slow down a little bit, Krista. Cut back off on the coffee. Anyway, so I'm proud of you for getting
Thank you.
past that and keep those bloopers in there or whatever, faux pas, anything like that. I love them. I am curious, like, okay, totally unherbally related or non-herbal related.
Sure.
Now I'm gonna start bloopering myself. Um, I was wondering like what your favorite genre or genres of music are.
Yeah, and
Totally different.
I want to say this might surprise some people because I feel like a lot of herbalists have maybe some stereotypical genres that they listen to. Like I'm not a hardcore Deadhead, which Krista, I think you're a Deadhead, right? No, you're not. That's right.
My husband.
That's right. Um, so I'm really into hip hop,
Hutchison.
rap music, and I always have been. And yeah, so the theme song to the Herbalist Hour is a rap song, and I just got to shout out Torrin Frost. He's
Yeah.
based in Seattle, and I was just so excited that he did this. And it's funny because he has connections to the herbal community,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, oh, this rapper who's tied to the herbal community, how good could he possibly be?
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal rapper, and in fact, when I looked at my Spotify Unwrapped or at the end of the year, Torrin
Uh-huh.
Frost was actually on my Unwrapped, and I was like so stoked. It wasn't the Herbalist Hour theme song, but it was like his own original stuff. But that's all to say, I've had a lifelong love affair with hip hop. Also, say 90s alternative rock, or 90s alternative music in general. Like
Yeah.
that's just like my nostalgia. That's like my happy place. I like reggae. I'm a recovering hippie. And yeah, New Orleans is my favorite city besides Appleton now, but like New Orleans, I love New Orleans, just their music scene in general. So at dinner time, I'll throw on, jazz and shit like that. But yeah, yeah, and you know what? It's like the season. Like, what season am I in? Like,
Yeah.
I listen to almost mostly hip hop now because I go to the gym a lot and I listen to hip hop music when I'm there. Like it's my energizing thing that I listen to. So I, I don't listen to a lot of music these days other than when I'm at the gym and stuff. But yeah, like I would say that's kind of where I'm at musically right now. There are some like other like newer stuff that I do like we'll throw on like there's a band that we like called Rainbow Kitten Surprise that we'll throw on sometimes that they're
Yep.
fun. But yeah, just stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. I was
Yeah.
curious. And
Totally.
like if you could meet any artist, like musical artist, who would you want to go backstage with? Who would you want to smoke a joint with, or actually smoke a
take
cigar with?
take fat bong rips with.
Or not,
Uh,
or chug a beer or something. No,
I don't actually smoke weed anymore. I mean,
I know
yeah,
you
it's been
don't.
many
That's why I
many
was like,
years,
wait.
but yeah, totally. Um, yeah. So, what's the saying? Be careful of meeting your idols, or something like that, or
Oh, I don't remember that, but I
it,
know.
it, it has something to do with like when you meet people you look up to, they might disappoint you.
Yeah.
Um, that's why I'm like hesitant to answer that question, but I will
Okay.
say this. I will answer it. I'm not going to cop out. But
Okay. You could.
so I mentioned 90s alternative.
Yeah.
Uh I used to always say my favorite band of all time was a band called Primus.
Uh-huh.
And they're from, I want to say Southern California, but they were kind of like fringe alternative rock. The lead singer and bassist is his name's Les Claypool, and I've always really admired Les Claypool as a like just a a guy that embraced the weird. He made being weird cool, and I've always kind of considered myself an outcast, kind of like a weird guy. And Primus was always like my flagship favorite band growing up, and I was totally obsessed with them. I'd see them live whenever I could, and I had their tapes, Sailing the Seas of Cheese, their CDs, all the above. And so I would say maybe, yeah, I would say I would love to hang out with Les Claypool. And
Mhm.
funny enough, some people know this in the HerbRally story. We were robbed in Oakland in April, like maybe a year and a half ago now. And the day before we got robbed in Oakland, we were visiting Les Claypool's winery in what is it, Sonoma County, and
Uh-huh.
uh, and we bought a bottle of wine and a t-shirt, and those were both jacked uh, in, from our truck when we were robbed in Oakland, and yeah, so if I could hang out with someone, it would be with Les Claypool at his winery. And I did hear Les was at his winery the day before we were there, so we just missed him. But
Ah,
yeah, so Les Claypool, I've always wanted to like hang out with him and meet him, and yeah, that's probably who I'd want to kick it with.
well, Les, if you're listening, he could use a bottle of wine. Do you
That's
remember
right.
what was it, a
Uh,
Cabernet? What was it?
I don't remember the wine. It probably was a red because I like red, but his brand is called Purple Pachyderm.
Purple Packeter. I
Yeah.
will. Awesome. Well, thanks for answering that. I was curious. I remember Primus.
Totally.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a little further back, but you know.
Totally. Yeah. I was
Awesome.
I was all about them in third grade.
So, okay, there we go.
They
I
were
was
my
like,
first CD.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You're rocking out.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Good for you. And then I was curious, like what other hobbies or like projects that you're engaged in outside of that aren't related to herbs? Like you were talking about basketball, working out. Like what do you like to do
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not?
Yeah, I have several different hobbies. I'm an avid chess player. I play chess way too much. I'm on the chessapp.com. You can find me at Mace Hutch if you want to
Okay.
like play me a game. But yeah, this is gonna sound absurd, but I could look at my stats now, but I want to say in the past 3 years I played about 20,000 games. So I'm a crazy chess fanatic. I play short games. I play 6 minute games, but or three
Impressive.
minute games. But yeah, it was kind of an addiction for a while. So now I try to limit myself to 5 games per day. But yeah, I play
That's good.
basketball a couple times a week, and I'm an avid ping pong player. So yeah, those are like some of my hobbies. If that's what kind of what you're asking, like I'm
Yeah, you're a
ping
ping
pong,
pong
basketball,
player.
chess. Oh, big time. Yeah, since I was in fourth grade, I've very much love, and yeah, I go to the gym and I like to like that kind of thing. So yeah,
Awesome. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
You mix things up and
Yeah,
watch
exactly.
TV once in a while and unplug
Yeah,
from,
exactly.
all the shit we're doing all the time. So good for
Yep.
you. I'm glad you've got a balance. And is there anything that you want to take up, like something new, again, unherbally related, like, or not herbally related that you're like, I want to study that or I want to check that out or
Yeah, that's a great question. And we kind of alluded to this earlier. It's like the whole Wisconsin scene, outdoor scene. Like there's hunting, fishing, cross-country skiing,
yeah.
snowshoeing. I want to pick one of those up and gain a true appreciation for it.
Nice.
Because like we were talking about earlier, this is my first Wisconsin winter. So yeah, I want to just immerse myself more into the Wisconsin culture. And I think doing one of those things would be like a really good way to do it. Probably would be snowshoeing because probably it's like the lowest barrier to entry. But yeah,
Awesome. Let me
yeah,
know. Let me know
yeah,
when you do it. You'll
we'll
be
do.
able to take some good pictures and you'll be able to ID those trees. Like you have to learn how to ID them without the leaves and by their buds and their leaf scars and stuff. You'll be out there right up front and close with some of the new plants. And have you met any new allies there that you're like herbal allies that you're like, oh, this is new to me or something fun where you're like, oh, a whole new plant to study.
So I just interviewed, well, just this was 2 months ago. We drove to Madison and I interviewed, do you know Denise Cusack?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's in
Great.
Madison, a couple hours
Awesome.
from me. And in the very beginning of the episode, I say, "Oh, we don't have Monarda, aka bee balm, in Oregon." And listening to myself say that, I'm like kind of cringing because it's one of those moments where I'm like, there probably is Monarda, but
Yeah.
I never remember really seeing it.
Uh-huh.
But when you come out here, it's ubiquitous. It's all over, and it's a beautiful plant. So I adore Monarda. Another one that we have out here that I don't remember seeing in Oregon, which again maybe exists, is butterfly weed. Oh shit, what's the genus on that? Um, it's the
Leon?
it's it's the
Beatrice? Wait.
it's I'm sorry, am I getting it wrong? It's the one that the monarchs
Oh, the
milkweed.
pleurisy, Asclepius?
Milkweed.
Asclepius? Yeah, Asclepius.
Yeah, so milk did I say
Tuberosa.
butterfly weed? Yeah, milkweed is all over here, which I again don't remember seeing in Oregon. So I'm loving the bee balm, I'm loving the milkweed, and also so violets are also ubiquitous in Oregon, but
Oh,
it is the state flower of Wisconsin,
yeah.
and they grow in our front yard, and I say they look like vegetables. That's probably an exaggeration, but they're like massive violets compared to what I saw in Oregon. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool to see like familiar plant allies, but see them in different states. And I want to say violet is that one of those for me for sure too.
Yeah, the violets back there are massive. They're like almost the size of wild ginger leaves,
Totally.
and they're sweet. Some of them, the odorata has like a really sweet aroma. And yeah, definitely could make a whole violet salad there. Like here, you're like,
Yeah, exactly.
and the bee balm. Oh my God, I remember like in the Midwest, again, it's ubiquitous to the Midwest. And like, I used to mountain bike through the forests and it would make me so hungry because it smelled like oregano. And it
Yeah.
reminded me of my Yaya's Greek cooking. It's so beautiful and just attracts so many gorgeous insects and of course bees, but butterflies and insects. And then is it not Asclepius tuberosa, Asclepius. I love those and the
That's
ants.
the milkweed.
The milkweed,
Yeah.
yeah. And I can't remember if it's tuberosa or yeah, I think it's a tuberosa. The pleurisy, there's milkweed and then there's like pleurisy root, which is more of like orange and like reddish orange and yellow flowers. And then there's like the standard milkweed that's I don't know if that one's medicinal out there that's got like the pinkish purple or whitish flowers.
Is pleurisy the same thing as milkweed? I had no idea.
It's the same genus,
Oh
Asclepias.
wow, I had no
Yeah.
idea. Okay, because when I worked at Mountain Reserves, we'd sell pleurisy root. I had no idea they were remotely related. That's cool.
Yeah, they're same genus, and then there's like, milkweeds. There's a bunch of milkweeds all around the country and even down into Texas and stuff. And they have some medicinal milkweeds there, but you have to dry them first. Anyways, this is not my class. But I love milkweeds and they're so beautiful. And the ants, if you like the,
I
kind of
remember seeing those.
pollinators and stuff, and those plants, I just trip me out. I feel like I could be sucked into their world. Like aren't they worldly kind of those
They
flowers?
are. Yeah, their fruiting body looks insane. Like it's yeah, that big like sack with bumps all over it. It's cool looking.
It's super cool looking. Yeah,
Yeah.
some of my favorite images when I was gathering them for my book were like the milkweed pods and the seed pods, and they're all like hairy, and the flowers are nuts. Like
Yeah,
I feel like I'm like looking into another planet or something.
for sure.
Anyways, oh my God, we have chatted for 2+ hours.
I
I feel
know.
like we could just go on, but I need to pour you another beer, but
Yeah, yeah.
probably should wrap up
Let's
sometime
do it. Yeah,
here.
yeah.
It has
Yeah, no.
been such a joy. This has been so fun. I hope it was good for you too.
I had a great time talking about myself. Thank you.
What is Howie Brownstein always say? Like, okay, I've talked about myself enough. What else would you like to know about me?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, that guy. Oh, that
That's
was
a
one question I was gonna ask you.
Howieism.
I was gonna ask you. I was like, if you could sedate Howie with any herb, what would you pick? If you could dose him. I'm kidding. I guess sedative is a projection there, but if
We'll
you
tell
could
you on
go-
episode 200.
Yeah, you let me know.
Yeah.
But this has been so much fun. I know we should probably wrap up here, but thank you so much for taking a few hours and telling us your life story and the story of HerbRally, and your history is rich, and it's been such a delight getting to know you on a deeper level. And thank you to your audience as well for being here, and thank you for allowing me to host.
Krista, first of all, thank you for doing this. Like, again, you like suggested this and you just took action. You're like, sometimes people say, "Oh, let's do this," and then maybe it never comes to fruition. But you did this, and you were like involved the whole way. So I just really appreciate that. Also, I want to give you an opportunity because we talked a little bit about your book, but please like plug or promote anything else you've got going on, or your school or anything like that. If you got a few more minutes to do that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do forget to do that. I would just mention, so I have my book, The Essential Guide to Western Botanical Medicine, and that's available through my website, ChristaSinadinos.com, and ChristaSinadinos.com. And then I have a few classes listed there, but most of my herbal classes for the Northwest School for Botanical Studies are listed on my website, which is herbaleducation.net. I do need to update that website. I know I've been working more on my book website and getting my blog rolling. And I'm doing mentorships with individuals or small groups for students who are wanting to move into practicing or starting their herbal business. So that's kind of something newer that I've been doing, because I have not been offering my longer term herbalist training programs for the last few years. Like during the pandemic, I've just been doing more short windows of classes online and teaching at conferences and California school and doing more guest lecturing. I think I'll get back there eventually, but I'm just opening things up to change and just working on the book, and eventually going to get an ebook out there and a soft cover, just so it's more widely available and more affordable. And I will give your listeners a code for a little discount on
Oh,
there.
nice.
So we can do, I don't know, $25 off or something, because
Awesome.
it's an investment to get the book. I realize that, and it's an investment, I should say, but it's worth it. It's got 30 years of my herbal experience in there, and some good formulas and deep materia medica. So yeah, thank you so much. And I was like tickled to hear Paul talking about it. I'm really honored. He is an amazing herbalist, and I really respect his work. And anyways, it has been so fun. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk a little bit at the end here, and just for being able to host the show. So what do we say? Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode of the Herbalist Hour. I gotta work on that one.
You're a natural. I love it.
I'll work on it.
I just want to say thanks to David and Katarina for showing up live too. So, but other than that, thank you, Krista. That was a lot of fun.
That was so fun.
Yeah.
Give Amanda a big hug for me.
I will.
One of these days I'll meet Amelia.
That's right.
And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Maybe one day we'll just do another one for fun, interview somebody else, but
Let's do it.
It's been grand.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Bye, friend. I hope you have a great
y'all.
night. Happy
You
Friday.
too. Thanks, Krista. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our HerbRally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbally.com/schoolhouse, enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.